Welcome back to the channel. So last time we finished up the flywheel machining, got that ready to go. So now we're going to work on these displacer plates. So we cut these out in a previous video, and I'm going to set them up in the 4-jaw chuck in the rotary table. And I've got my angles laid out here. We're going to drill 12 holes for a 0.80 screw. And then I'm going to use a Philister head screw. So we're going to countersink these with an 1/8 inch end mill halfway through this, so 62 thousandths deep. So we'll get all this set up and get our holes drilled and get them countersunk. Okay, so I got the holes drilled in the displacer plates, 12 holes in each, and then got them countersunk, and then got the screws here that showed up. Those fit in there good. So we got 24 0.80 screws. So that'll finish these up for now. On the bottom plate, we'll eventually put a plug in here and plug this hole, and then the top plate gets some more holes drilled in it, but those get located from the plate that goes on top of here from the base plate. So we'll do those at a later date. So that'll finish up those two. So the next thing we're going to do is I want to cut down this piece of plexiglass that goes between the two plates. So it's about 50 thousandths depending on where you measure it. Oversized right now, so I want to get this squared up and get it cut down. So I've marked it out with a Sharpie on both sides just so that I can see where it's cutting up, where it's cleaning up at, where I'm cutting at, so I can tell when it cleans up on one side. And I've got some masking tape on the 3-jaw chuck on the jaws to help keep from, hopefully not scratch this up on the inside. So we'll get this set up in the chuck on the lathe, and then I've got a high-speed steel tool bit in there with a really sharp point on the end of it, so there's not much radius at all. I haven't cut any PVC or like this before, but I think that sharp point will be the best thing to do. And we'll might have to play around with speeds to find a good speed to cut this at to get a good clean finish on it. But I think a really sharp tool with not much of a radius on it, just a real sharp point, is going to be the best thing to cut this. But we'll get it set up and make a pass through it and see what it does. Okay, so I got the displacer ring cut. That went pretty good. Actually turned out pretty smooth. Relatively smooth on the cut. I did speed it up to 1,000 RPM. Get a little bit better cut. There's still some scratches in it, which I'm not sure a good way to get those out. And this is, I did say PVC before, but I think this is actually plexiglass. So I'll see if I can come up with some way to try to get some of those scratches out of it a little bit. But I think that'll work for what we want. So that will get sandwiched between our two aluminum plates here, like this. So the next thing we need to do are these columns. So there's 12 columns that go between these two plates. Those are made out of Delrin, 1/4 inch. So I've got some 1/4 inch Delrin here that we'll use to cut these. Then they'll get drilled and tapped on both ends, and then they get cut on a flat on one end, and then we use a ball end mill and cut a groove on the front side. And these are about 20 thousandths shorter than what the distance is between these two, so that ensures that these plates pull down good and tight, because this needs to be a airtight seal against this plexiglass. So my plan is to rough cut these off longer than they need to be. So we'll cut 12 sections here, and I'm going to use the 5C collet and the collet chuck to hold these. But then with these 5C collets, they make a adjustable stop that'll screw in to the back of it. So this will screw in to the back of the collet, and then we can set the depth here to what we need it to be. So we'll cut these long, face them off, and then we'll put the first one in here and keep facing it off and checking it until we get the overall dimension, the overall length that we want. Then we can set our 0, and then with that stop in there, we can just put the next one in there and face it off, and the next one and face it off, and then that'll ensure that all 12 of them will be the same length. Then we'll drill them, tap them, and then set them up in the mill the flat on there, and then we'll flip them over and then mill the groove with the ball end mill. And then once I get that done, we'll come back and then we'll assemble this together and see what it looks like. Okay, so I got the columns made, 12 identical columns out of Delrin. And I've got the plates installed, the displacer plates and the ring, so you can see how all that's going to work and go together. Turned out pretty good. So we cut these off, and then in that 5C collet I was able to use that stop and then face them off on one end, and then I faced off the first one and measured it to length and then set my 0. So then I could face the rest of them off, and I knew that they were the same length. Then we put them in we drilled them to a 1/4 inch deep, and then I tapped them. And I started tapping them in the lathe with the tab and the tailstock, but that wasn't working real good. So I used my tapping stand here, and I was able to get them all tapped. Then sent them back up in the mill and milled the flat on the back side. Then set up a stop in the vise, since I was going to have to make 12 of these, so we can take one out, put the other one in. Then I found my end point, and then we milled this with an 1/8 inch ball end mill. And once I was set up and had my 0 point and where to stop at, I could just take one out, put the other one in, and mill all of them the same. They still need just a little bit of deburr work, but they turned out good. I'm happy with that. So the next thing to do is this displacer disc. So this is made out of foam, and then I did purchase this piece of foam when I bought the plans. So I've got it marked out here to the diameter. Then I've got a 1/16 hole in the middle. So I've got a rod in a 5C collet on the lathe, and my plan is to put this on the rod and then spin it by hand. And then to cut it with, I've got a Dremel bit here, which is made to cut drywall. We're going to see how it does on this. So I can mount this in a tool holder, and then turn the disc by hand and then cut that circle. So never done this before this way, not sure how this is going to turn out, but we're going to get it mounted up and give it a shot. Okay, so that worked pretty good. I kind of snuck up on it, and with that bit, turned it by hand, left it just a little bit big, and then took it to the belt sander and sanded it down. So this is what we ended up with, and there's where it goes. So there's supposed to be a little bit of an air space between the disc and the side so that air can travel from the bottom to the top. And then eventually we will epoxy this rod into here. Once we get it located, there will be epoxy that goes down in this hole and around here. My hole ended up just a little bit big where I was turning it around. It did wallow it out a little bit, but I think I can fill that with epoxy when we go to epoxy it. If not, we'll make another one, but I think this one will work. So that's gonna do it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and come back next time. We're gonna start on the main frame. So we'll get that laid out and get it set up and start working on that next time.